Okay, so I want to go over some things for Lab Practical 3 with you. I'm going to split these into little segments. So the first one I'm going to talk about is going to be about the porifera, the sponges, and the cnidarians and ctenophores, the radiates or radiata. So here's some resources that I've used to find information. Most of it's also in your book and in the notes and in your symbiosis manual and your atlas and all that good stuff. And I think I've mentioned before that a lot of the classifications are kind of in flux, so we're just going to do the best we can, and some of these things might not be perfectly correct, but we're going to go with kind of like what the established previous model has been, since they don't really know what to do with it yet. Okay, so the phylum of these sponges is called Porifera, remember the pores. And we did talk about this in class, so I'm not going to go too extensively into it, but here's an example of a number of types of sponges from the phylum Porifera. They don't move around, they're sessile, which means they filter feed or suspension feed, basically pulling water into their pores and then using their individual cells, their choanocytes, in order to move the water through and to capture the food. They can reproduce sexually or asexually. And they are special because they have no true tissues. They are parazoans. Para means next to, so they're next to real animals. The animals that we saw, we didn't actually see the animals. We saw their skeletal remains, pretty much. So there's two different types of sponges. We saw a squishy one and then a not squishy one. And the reason is because of their spicules, or their skeletal fibers. So the spicules are made of different materials, and they can cause the sponges to have different characteristics. So this guy up here is a common sponge or brown bath sponge. It can be used for bathing. And you see there the pores are the small parts. Actually, those are probably even the oscula, but the small parts of the pores, the bigger parts, are going to be called the oscula, plural, osculum, singular. And really, the pores might be also the small parts here. But in any case, the big openings, like, clear to see, like this guy, it's pretty clear osculum, or these two ones, or even this red fan sponge. The material that the sponges are made of is called spongin. So that's like the bath ones. The material that this one, a glass sponge, is made of is silica. And some other sponges can have spicules made of calcium carbonate. So those would also be kind of hard, like the glass sponge, silica. And so that's how they're classified, based off of what their spicules are made of. So that's Porifera. Then we have the Cnidaria. There's 4 classes. You should know who's in each class that we looked at. And so I have a slide for each of the classes. You need to know the body forms. So there's the polyp form, which is when the tentacles are facing up, like this, like these guys here, tentacles up. And then there's the medusa form, when the tentacles are down and the mouth is up on these polyps. The medusa, the mouth is down. Here's the mouth. Here's their tentacles. Now, really, I should actually clarify this. And so the Portuguese manowar, they're actually collections of polyps that are just kind of upside down. So really a better example of a medusa is like a true jelly. So this moon jelly here. You can see there's the mouth, little tentacles. Some of these Cnidaria go back and forth depending on what part of their life cycle they're in. Sometimes they'll be a polyp, sometimes they'll be a medusa. Some just stay polyps their whole life. And some have predominantly a medusa life. Cnidocytes are what make all this in a group, stinging cells. So if you have an organism with cnidocytes, it's a cnidarian. And they have a gastrovascular cavity for feeding. No digestive system per se yet, or circulatory system, or respiratory system, none of that. They just have this gastrovascular cavity, which is basically like the opening in the inside. So the first class we come to is Hydrozoa. These are going to be your genus Hydra, so this is a Hydra, versus also the genus Obelia, and this is an Obelia. So they're both Hydrozoa. Polyp form, you can see this one's, can't see the whole thing, but you can definitely see here polyps, right? Tentacles up. This is a polyp, tentacles up. This guy's tentacles are actually all the way at the other end, but you can see some coming off of here. This is budding. So this guy is actually pinching off. This part of the Hydra will become a new Hydra when it completely pinches off. It'll settle, land on the substrate, attach, and then grow. They can also sexually reproduce. They don't have to just bud. They'll produce eggs and sperm. And then the Obelia, you'll see here that there's two different types of polyps. There are feeding polyps with the tentacles to catch the food, to sting it and catch it. And then there's reproductive polyps that don't have the tentacles. And those are going to be the ones where the new Obelias are developing, in the sense that they're going to, I think this is a Medusa form of the Obelia. It does go back and forth between the two. There's a nice diagram in your bird atlas to look at that. But that's where the Medusas would come out of, and then they mate, and then they make more polyps. But this one is a polyp form. Both have stinging cells. So that's Hydrozoa. This is Scyphozoa, which are the jellyfish, the jellies. And the example we have of the jellies is this Aurelia. You don't need to know that. But this is a flattened one, and this is not flattened. But you can see here the most prominent feature you see is are the gonads, which is going to produce either male or female reproductive cells. They have small tentacles on the edge of their kind of sac. You can see those here. That would be where the cnidocytes are, the stinging cells. And the gastrovascular cavity is the opening in the inside. Digestion, well, it's in there. Digestion is going to take place there. And then the distribution of nutrients to all the tissue is going to take place there. It's obviously a Medusa form. And they're going to reproduce sexually. So those are jellies, true jellies, the Scyphozoa. Third class of Cnidaria is Anthozoa, which include the corals. So they are animals. Now we're not really seeing the real animal here. The real animal lives in the holes. We're just seeing the skeleton, the calcium carbonate skeleton of the animal. So basically it's secreted by itself. The animal secretes it. It doesn't go find a rock and then bore into it. It actually makes this shell sort of idea and encases it. And so you can see there are different forms. The little animals would live in here. And calcium carbonate's what the shell is made of, or the skeleton is made of. So that's Anthozoa. They do have stinging cells because they are part of the Cnidaria. Also in Anthozoa, besides coral, there's also the sea anemones. These guys here, those are starfish, or sea stars, but these are the sea anemones, really brightly colored ones. And this is our sea anemone. Not as beautiful, but you can see it's a polyp form. The tentacles are on top. You definitely see that here. Anthozoas are always polyp forms. They don't go back and forth. So there's no like little medusa form of the corals or sea anemones. There's also members of this family, this or the class Anthozoa are sea fans, which look like this. I had some of those in class, and sea pens, which look pretty much like a plumage pen, you know, like they used to use to like sign Declaration of Independence, that kind of stuff. They look like that, but they're just really brightly colored. So that would be good to know, is that, you know, at least 2 or 3 examples of organisms in classes, the class of Anthozoa. So we got the corals, the sea anemones, sea fans, sea pens, all polyp form. Oh, here, I guess I have a, so these are later sea slugs, but here are newly discovered sea pens. So that's a sea pen. That's a pretty elaborate one. This is newly discovered in the Philippines last 2011. And that's a sea pen as well, so that one looks more classic. Okay, and this you can see lots and lots of sea anemones and corals as well. It's a coral reef, quite a lot of diversity there. You can see all these are the little animals that are individual polyps. Then there's Scyphozoa. I don't know where I put that, but or Cubozoa. Cubozoa, we don't really care about that one right now, but it's a box jelly, just to let you know. But you won't need to know that for the lab practical. Okay, ctenophores look sort of like they should be cnidarians, but they aren't. They don't have stinging cells, so they have no cnidocytes, and therefore they are not cnidarians. They are ctenophores. You can tell they're ctenophores. I mean, obviously you can't touch them and know if they have stinging cells, but you can see their combs. So I tried to zoom in here. You can see there are combs in each of these guys. There are 8 of them. So you can see, here's one guy, and you can see maybe 3 of his combs, or 4. Here's another, seeing his combs. And those are going to be distinguishing features of these ctenophores, which are called comb jellies. They don't have as prominent of tentacles either. They kind of retract them, and they actually have these sticky parts called coloblasts. But mostly I'm concerned about you being able to tell that they are different from these kinds of jellies. The cnidarian Scyphozoa versus the ctenophore comb jelly. Not the same phylum. It has 8 combs and no cnidocytes. Okay, so I think that's what I have for you about cnidarians, ctenophores, and which are both radiates, they're both radiata, and also the porifera.